So I'm going to touch on three areas: our use of probe data in general, our use of StreetLight data, and then I'll talk about some potential uses for the StreetLight data that we've been exploring. I'm not going to get into too much detail on the specific projects and applications that we've done, but you'll hear about a few WISTOP projects during Rob and Joe's presentation. So WISTOP's been using probe data for several years now, so I wanted to mention a few of those applications. We're currently using probe data to monitor real-time traffic operations, to provide traveler information on 511, on our dynamic message signs, and also on portable message boards on construction detour routes. We use probe data to calibrate, validate, and inform our traffic operations analysis and modeling decisions. We use probe data to get travel speeds for system-level performance measures. We also use it for alternate route planning and analysis. So the use cases are fairly broad, and we utilize a couple of different vendors based on the needs of the project or application. Over the last couple of years, the use of probe data, specifically StreetLight data, has increased, and the use of the data has been focused around traffic modeling. Our region offices and consultant partners have been using StreetLight data for the last few years as inputs to traffic operations analysis and modeling efforts for both traditional design projects and system planning and prioritization projects. We've also used the data for traffic planning and forecasting, but to a lesser degree than in operations analysis. We've had around 10 projects that have purchased data using the pay-per-use option, and they all purchased between 50 and 100 zones. So the data is being used to supplement traditional data sources such as traffic counts, travel surveys, our travel demand models. It's also being used to validate those data sources in cases where there might be questions about the data, or if the data doesn't fit the specific situation being analyzed. In some places, it's being used to fill gaps in existing data sets, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next few slides. The primary type of data that's being pulled is origin destination data, and it's being used in both microsimulation models and travel demand models. So more specifically for microsimulation modeling, we've used StreetLight data to help calibrate weave maneuvers by looking at ODs for adjacent interchanges. We've used StreetLight data to help with calibrating routing decisions. We've used StreetLight data to help with developing trip tables and also for diversion analysis. We do have travel demand models for most of the areas we're building simulation models, but in a lot of cases, the zone structure and source data is not as granular as what's needed for the simulation models. So the StreetLight data has been used to supplement those trip tables from the travel demand models. For our travel demand models, we've used StreetLight data to refine the trip tables so the model volumes better match count data and the validation parameters are improved. The forecasting section also gets questions from the public and within our agency about trip lengths and origins and destinations. We've used StreetLight data to supplement information from our statewide travel demand model and our national household travel survey data to better answer the specific questions that are being asked. So the charts on the right show trip purposes and trip lengths for several counties in Wisconsin using data from StreetLight. Those help us answer questions about how far people were traveling for work trips and non-work trips. Like I mentioned earlier, we're really just getting our feet wet, but the folks in my section are excited about the potential for this data. So next, I'm just going to talk about a few potential uses. If we get questions about origins, and actually, if you can go up just one slide. So if we get questions about origins and destinations of traffic now, we typically rely on our travel demand models to help answer those questions. In some cases, the zone structure is too coarse or the input data is not as detailed as we need to answer the specific question. The StreetLight data would allow us to supplement the model information and also look at different time periods to understand whether OD pairs change over time by day of week or by season. We also have a hard time getting good, consistent data for external zones to model trips that start or end outside Wisconsin. Using StreetLight data to validate those external trip pairs in our travel demand models would provide an additional level of validation. that's something we've talked about as well. Our vehicle miles traveled analysis and estimation process is another area that could be enhanced using StreetLight data. We've talked about using the data to supplement our existing process to enhance the results, or just to allow us to disaggregate the VMT data for smaller geographic areas. Diversion analysis is another area for potential use of the data. The map on the right of the screen shows the Appleton area, northern Wisconsin. We made some improvements to the corridor in green, State Highway 441, and we're evaluating the blue corridor, Interstate 41, for possible expansion. We need to understand how through trips and local trips are using these two corridors so we can have confidence in the volumes. And this is one specific area we're looking to use StreetLight data to supplement the other information we have. So supplementing counts is another area for potential use. We have a really robust statewide count program at WSDOT, and we supplement that with special counts for projects. But it seems like we're always running into scenarios where we need more data. Counts on local roads are an area that could be supplemented to help with validating models and even for things like safety analysis. Truck counts where we have limited data, locations with land uses that have unique daily or seasonal trip generation characteristics, where we don't have a nearby continuous count station. Special traffic generators like colleges, airports, casinos are another area where we see the StreetLight data being of potential value. So I've never worked with a traffic engineer or planner that doesn't want more data. So that's why I think there's going to be some use here. Another area of potential use is in planning and before-after analysis for things like special events, incidents, or bridge closures. We've had a lot of flooding and snow events over the past few years, and being able to track where traffic is diverting to over time would be valuable. I suspect it's not just my section that fields questions on travel patterns and travel behavior. I see value in being able to provide information beyond an average annual daily scenario, which is what we get from our travel demand models. Also being able to dispel any myths about who is using a particular facility, essentially where trips are coming from or going to on a particular link, a typical select link analysis, but for a particular time period other than an average day. Truck data is another area that we think has some potential at WSDOT, and not just truck counts or truck percentages, but OD data for trucks. Being able to pair the StreetLight data with our existing data sources would allow us to answer questions with more confidence, or to be able to disaggregate the data to answer more detailed questions. So WSDOT's a data-driven organization, and we're measuring and quantifying more and more every day. Traffic data is a key component to these processes, and I think StreetLight adds value to help us answer questions that we can't now for one reason or another. So that's all I have for today. Thank you for tuning in and for the opportunity to share some perspective from the WSDOT forecasting section.